Dear kids, welcome back to social science class. India, under its various rules, progressed significantly in the fields of art, literature, science and education, right? And the kings often created buildings in the forms of forts, stupas and temples to commemorate events and to exert their supremacy over the people. So today we are going to learn the rich culture and the science of India, and in this chapter we will discuss about the progress and development in the fields of art, literature, science and education, and how art, architecture and literature flourished under the Gupta Empire, and about the discoveries in the field of science and invention in technology. Okay. So, this is the mind map of our chapter culture and science. First and foremost we will discuss the architecture, then we will go for paintings, then the literature, then in the field of medicine and the development in science and technology. So, let us learn together the first architecture. While we are thinking about architecture, you should remember one, stupas. Yes, the buildings that have survived from the past speak volumes about the craftsmanship of the Indians, right? One such example of an ancient building is what? The stupa. A stupa is a mound containing the relics like teeth, hair, then bone and ashes of Buddha or his followers placed in a casket at the center of the stupa, right? Then a dome like structure made of carved stone slabs cover it, and a path known as Pradakshina path. Pradakshina path is laid out around the stupa, along which the devotees encircle it. And one of the finest stupas built was, yes, the Sanchi stupa in Madhya Pradesh during the reign of Ashoka, and the Sanchi stupa was enlarged twice in size under Sanghas. The beautifully crafted gateways called Torana and railings were also added by the Sanghas. Okay, and another stupa at Bharat in central India was also built during the rule of the Sanghas. Similarly, in the Deccan, a magnificent stupa built in Amravati. So, these are what the examples of architecture. First one is stupa. Next, we can talk about caves. Right? We also find evidence of artificial caves made during this period, and these caves were made artificially out of rocks and were elaborately decorated with sculptures and paintings on the walls. And next feature of architecture is temples. The stupas built in the earliest temples dedicated to deities such as Vishnu, Shiva and other Hindu gods. Then these temples were constructed around the Garbhagriha, okay, Garbhagriha, or the room where the image of the deity was placed, and it was here that the devotees offered prayer or the religious rituals were performed. And these temples had a tower known as Shikhara, okay, the tower of the temple Shikhara, built above the Garbhagriha to mark its sanctity. Then the temples usually had a hall also known as Mandapa, where people assembled. And in South India, the Pallavas and Chalukyas undertook building activities on a great scale. And the Pallavas built a number of stone temples in the 7th and 8th century BCE. And the most famous of them are the Radha temples. Okay, Radha temples found at Mahabalipuram or Mamallapuram. And for building such a temples, the stone cutters had to work from the top towards the bottom, towards the bottom. And the shore temple at Mahabalipuram or Mamallapuram is an example of brick temples which are built from the bottom to top, unlike other stone temples. And in addition, the Pallavas also built several temples at Kanchi. A good example is the Kailashnath temple built in the 8th century. And the Chalukyas of Badami built many temples at Aihole in Karnataka. There are as many as almost 70 temples at Aihole. And building stupas and temples, how they built? The building of temples and stupas was not so easy. Okay, they were built in several stages. A good quantity stone had to be found and transported to the place where the stupa was to be built. Then the artisans and craftsmen had to work hard to carve the stone to beautiful walls, pillars, ceilings and floors. And you have seen in the case of Sanchi Stupa, that is, it was first built by Ashoka and later on extended by other rulers to make it look even more attractive. Okay, this means that the building a stupa or a temple was expensive and could usually be undertaken by the kings and queens only. Sometimes rich devotees also contributed to the buildings of the temples by bringing in gifts that could be used for decorating the temple or stupa. Guilds of merchants, groups of merchants, farmers, garland makers and smiths also contributed. And we also have to know about this through the inscriptions carved out in their names on the walls, railings and pillars. And next is paintings. Okay, moving to the next, after architecture we will see the paintings, how it is improved. The greatest specimen of paintings during the Gupta times is found at the caves of Ajanta in Maharashtra. Okay, many of these hollowed caves were Buddhist monasteries. On the walls of these caves, we find paintings based on Buddha and his previous births, that is depiction of Jataka stories. And these paintings are realistic and natural, and their beauty and colors have not faded even after 1500 years. Imagine how hard it would be or would have been to make these paintings in these dark caves. Probably they were made in the light of torches, right? And artists of these paintings used colors extracted from plants and minerals. It was great. And we'll move to the next, literature. In South India, mainly in South India, Sangam literature consisted of short and long poems. These poems were composed by numerous poets in praise of various heroes and heroines. And two great Tamil epics are Silapadikaram, composed by Ilango, and Manimekalai by Satyanar. During the Gupta period, a good amount of Sanskrit literature was produced. During this period, the two great Sanskrit epics, what are they? Yes, the Ramayana and Mahabharata were compiled. They had been popular for a long time but acquired a written form only during this period. Okay? And do you know who is Kalidasa? A famous poet, right? Yes, Kalidasa was an extraordinary poet and dramatist of the Gupta period. Kalidasa, he wrote Meghadoodham, in which a cloud acts as a messenger between lovers separated from each other. And his other famous work was Abhignana Shakuntala, which is the love story of King Dushyanta and Shakuntala. And their son Bharata appears to be a famous ruler. And it is amongst the best 100 literary works of the world and has been translated to many European languages. And you can see some verse from Meghadoodham. Okay, it is like this. A cool breeze, delightful as it is touched. A cool breeze, delightful as it touched, and with the fragrance of the earth, swollen by your showers, inhaled deeply by elephants, and causing the wild figs to ripen, will blow gently as you go. Beautiful. Kalidasa tries to suggest the ancient understanding of nature through such verses. Okay, the Puranas were also finally compiled during the Gupta period. The Puranas contain stories about gods and goddesses such as Vishnu, Shiva, Durga or Parvati. They were written in simple Sanskrit and were heard by everyone, including men and women. Common men and women also composed poems. Women also composed poems, plays and songs, told stories, sang and danced, but it was done in their native language like Pali and not in Sanskrit. Some such stories known as folklore, are best preserved in the form of Jatakas. Jatakas also find their presentation on the railings or panels of stupas and in the paintings of Ajanta. Okay, now we are moving to medicine. The field of medicine also made a remarkable progress in India. Around 2300 years ago, Ayurveda emerged as a medical system. The most famous works on Ayurveda written during the period under study were Charak Samhita by Charak and Susruta Samhita by Susruta. Okay, so our last topic about the development in science and technology. You all might have heard about Aryabhatta, right? Aryabhatta was the most famous mathematician of the Gupta period. He calculated the value of pi as 3.1416 and the length of the solar year as 365.3586805, which is close to the calculations of the recent studies. And he also believed that the earth was a sphere which rotated on its axis and the shadow of the earth falling on the moon caused eclipses. All this has been confirmed by modern science. And an inscription from Allahabad suggests that the decimal system was known in India at the beginning of the 5th century CE. Indians had also developed the zero, and this system of counting was adopted by the Arabs, and from there it spread to Europe. Now it is used throughout the world, right? Great. Yet another technological achievement was in metallurgy. The knowledge of copper metallurgy of the Harappans gradually advanced to bronze and further to iron. Then the Indian metallurgists began producing highly advanced wrought iron and cast iron around 500 BCE. The best examples in iron pillar at Mehrauli in Delhi, which was made in the 4th century CE, and it has shown no signs of rust till date. Okay, the pillar mentions a king by the name of Chandra, who is usually regarded as Chandragupta II of the Gupta dynasty. Okay, so this is what all about our culture and science. Let's have a recap of our chapter. Great skills were witnessed in the field of Indian architecture and art. A number of stupas and temples were built by Indian rulers, and these were magnificent structures requiring a great deal of craftsmanship, right? Then Guptas, Pallavas and Chalukyas were great patterns of art. Then the finest specimen of the paintings, the finest specimen of the paintings of this period is found where at the Ajanta caves belonging to the Gupta period. Then In the field of literature, a number of Sanskrit works were produced and epics were written both in North and South India. Then what about science and technology? Science and technology of the period were also well developed, as it is evident from the works of the famous mathematician Aryabhatta. Okay? So, be proud of our cultural history and study this chapter well. Till then, goodbye.